2012 Honda NC700X, and I ordered the R-Gaza or Ruchka Gaza crash bars on eBay. They took only 15 days from the day I placed the order, and there were no problems except there was a hole in the box which shipped directly from Russia, but fortunately there were no parts missing.
When you take these clips off, you actually don't need to cut them the way I did with the other side. They're just like little spikes. They're pretty neat.
Don't forget the little rubber cushions the way I did. This is basically how they're going to go in place. They're just there to protect the frame so it doesn't get scratched.
Installed the R-Gaza crash bars. This is how it came. The box had a little hole in it, but nothing was missing. The bolts are packed in with the bars. They give you this nice laminated instruction card, which I've never seen. It's pretty cool. The first thing I did is take the lower cowling off. The big challenge is going to be, for some people, these things can get rusty. Cowling. Very important for reassembly. I put silicone grease on these little push pin things here. Keep them sliding good and make it so they just pop into place. In the directions, they tell you to do one side at a time, so I'm going to start with the right side here. I pinched this from the bottom so I could just lift the whole thing out of a little hole, which is right here. Then I unlocked it and I just slid it over here, and you just unlocked it by putting a little screwdriver in there and kind of popping it. My 1/2-inch drive, 17mm socket, and got in there and took this main bolt out right here. Next thing I did is I put a little masking tape to hold that round thick spacer, keep it from dropping down to here. It was 12mm. And I took this lower bolt out, loosened this one up so I could just push this assembly out of the way. I put the same 1/2-inch drive. I didn't need to support the motor, but if you're not sure about that, and I'm using the center stand here, you could put a jack under it if you were worried about things moving. And here is the same spacer. This one's a little thicker. I did have to take that other bolt out of this bracket, so it's a good idea to take a still picture. This U-bolt, you're going to kind of wrap it around up here, and or actually I think you can put it in here and just loop it around the bar so you don't run into this here. Put the bolts in and start them a little bit and leave this gap here, and that way you'll be able to put your U-bolt in there. Short bolt in the bottom, long bolt up top. Don't forget to put this in here. And because I had a lot of corrosion, I used a little bit of the silicone grease. Next, don't forget your washers right here. These have the nylon, so they don't need Loctite, and I didn't use Loctite on the other stuff because the threads are already kind of dry and have some corrosion. It's important not to over tighten these. You will need a deep socket, 17mm, same as all these bolts here, 17, 17, 17, and 17. Because you don't want to bend this metal, you don't want to crush the metal tube. I put my fingernail in here. You can feel there's a gap, then there's no gap, so that the plate here is sitting against the frame. And you snug it up. You don't have to make these really tight. They've got nylon, they're not going to loosen up. And you just want this to have a, a decent fit in there. What I got to do is put these two 8mm in, and then move the little hose clamp and put it back in the hole. This is probably the trickiest part so far. I took both of these back out. I put this clamp on here but didn't crank it down tight. It has little ratcheting kind of plastic things here. So just make it so it's not too tight so you can slide it down the hose, put it in the metal bracket, and then I put these screws back in. It's very important because there's a little bit of tension here, is that you make sure that you're able to spin these with your fingers. Take pressure off that so you don't cross thread these bolts in here and damage the threads. Okay, this side is super easy compared to the other side. The things you're going to be doing is moving this hose out of the way, and you can see the way I ran it through there. Down here, this hose pops into a little, kind of like a little, it's like a little fork like that. And you just pop it back in. So you pop it out, and you see how I ran through here. these things were tougher to get off, so what I did is when I put my ratchet in here and I had it in loosen, I used the hammer here. This obviously wasn't here, and I struck this a bunch of times to just to break it free, making sure I wasn't off at an angle like this, but you know, holding the ratchet straight on. And I did the same here because this one was really tight. I can see the pin right there. I already did the other side, and you're just gonna pick it up and line it up with the hole there, like this. I come up, like that. It's lined up. Push it, it goes in. You can do the same on the other side. I already did the side, but you can actually just look through the hole in the plastic and see it. Once you did that, now you're gonna do your sides, and you can see it right there, like that. We'll do the same on the other side. That's it. And if I lift up and down, it doesn't move. And if you're not careful, sometimes you'll cause the front to come back out. And finally, your holes should be lined up here, ready to go on. Last check, and this is important with this lower cowling, is you just pull on it lightly like that. You can see everything is seated in the holes. Sometimes you can put it on and one of the pins is not in, and the plastic will get distorted over time like that, and you'll have more problems lining it up in the future. Same thing over here, just kind of pull on that a little. Everything's nice and snug. Right. Final screw check, I did both sides down here. Everything's tight. That's pretty easy to see if you missed it. You got your two little 10mm ones down there, or 12mm. 12mm. Over here you got your two little 8s there snugged up. Everything's good there. You got your little hose clamp locked on, and I think that's it. So you can kind of see how they look. The protection, the key thing is the radiator. That's about $500. So if you mess that thing up laying it over, wouldn't be good. I don't really have two hands to show you this properly, but I start with the screw. I look at the little hole in there, and I make sure it's lined up. It's easy to cross thread this thing. And I take the socket with my hands. I put some silicone grease on the whole bolt, including the head here, to prevent it from rusting out. And I take this and I spin it the whole way, and it should spin smoothly to make, you know, and then it goes in straight, and then you're done. A few rides with it. I didn't hear any wind noise or experience any problems. You can just grab this to make sure, you know, these things are tight, there's no rattling, and they don't need to be super tight. These could be trimmed with an angle grinder, but if you do that, you're going to want to spray it with a little spray bottle, keep it cool. Otherwise, you'll melt the plastic inserts. This little sticker fell off, so what I ended up doing is I just mixed up a tiny little spot of epoxy, removable tape, to hold it in place while it dried to keep it tight. After, I'm going to go over it with this outdoor spar urethane that has UV blockers in it, so the sticker won't fade. You can see they really blend in pretty good. The last thing I'm probably going to do is print up a label using black sticker with my Brother label printer. It just says the full name down here. I don't know why they don't do that. It's really for other people. If someone walks by and sees the crash bar and they say, oh, that looks pretty cool, they'll know what brand it is. Something else that I will probably add in time is maybe a small driving light, either inside here or on the outside, and maybe some kind of wind deflector that would go on here or go on at an angle that I could take on and off, so in the winter season it just helps keep the wind off your knees.